Shodair Children's Hospital has been around for 130 years. 50 plus years ago, we became what we are today, which is this child and adolescent psychiatric hospital with this world-class genetics program.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
Welcome to The Vault, a Montana-based business podcast where we highlight the people and ideas driving our region forward. I'm your host, Marcel Brewski.
You're listening to The Vault.
Joining us on The Vault today are some special guests from Helena with the Shodair Children's Hospital. I have two guests joining me, so I'll just have you guys introduce who you are and what you do at the hospital.
Sure. My name is Craig Aasved, and I have the opportunity of being the CEO of Shodair Children's Hospital.
My name is Maija Trout, and I am the lead genetic counselor.
Wow. So thank you for coming and being in Billings with us.
You are quite welcome.
It's fun to have you in the vault.
Thanks for having us.
How did you, we like to, I want to get into what you guys are doing at the hospital. You have some big milestone things coming up and some things that Rusty sent me on this fun little sheet. But I want to learn a little bit about each of you and how you got to where you are. So can we start, Craig, with you?
Sure. Again, my name's Craig Aasved. So I am a Montana guy. Born in Butte, grew up in Lewistown, went out of state for my education, and ironically received a degree in hospital administration 40 years ago. So I have been in the healthcare space since 1985.
Okay.
I had the opportunity coming back to Montana in 94 and have been in some great places of Whitefish and Missoula and now Helena.
Cool. Did you, growing up in Lewistown, did you always want to be in healthcare?
I wanted to be a teacher and a coach.
What kind of teacher? Were you specific on I want to be a history teacher or science?
It would have been probably business if I would have done anything. But, so it's interesting. You go full circle. And I would say a lot of my role today is that.
Yeah.
It's just not, with kids. It's with adults. So it's been a great career.
Cool. And you did a lot of it here. So working in different health systems, growing through those. Did you get your healthcare, right? You guys get a master's sometimes.
So my bachelor's is at Concordia College in Minnesota in Moorhead. And then my graduate degree is from the University of Colorado. Awesome. And then you came back to Montana. I'm so lucky that I was able to come back to Montana. Then it was hard to find a job in Montana. So I've been blessed and just thankful that I'm here and this is home and this is where I will end my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what changes in that time from the 80s until now have you seen in healthcare?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, you go back, I started in the day when they were just introducing what they call DRGs or diagnosis-related groups. So that it used to be from cost-based reimbursement to just by diagnosis. And then it's just continued to evolve from there. And reimbursement is always that tricky issue. And what's not changed is the cost of healthcare. That just continues to go up, which has presented a lot of different challenges and problems.
Yeah, so you guys are probably busy at the sessions and other things.
Always busy at the sessions, yes. And really busy right now with what's coming out of the federal government and, the big, beautiful bill and what that's really going to look like and how that's going to impact Montanans.
Mm-hmm. What about you? Where'd you grow up?
I am a Northeast Minnesota gal, born and raised. I got my undergraduate at St. Mary's University of Minnesota, which is in Southeast Minnesota.
Okay.
And then I did my graduate studies at the Augustana Sanford Genetic Counseling Graduate Program in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And did some training in San Diego as well. And then stayed there for about 4 years after I graduated and was able to relocate to Helena in 2022. So really just hopped on I-90 from where I was in undergrad and just kept going.
What drew you to Montana?
So my husband and I have just love the West and are really outdoorsy and like to do all the outside things, hunting, fishing. So we just knew we wanted to live somewhere west. He grew up in a rural part of Nebraska and really has a heart for being in rural places, as do I. And it just was the perfect opportunity at that time to relocate. And I think we'll stay in Helena forever if we can.
Yeah, it's a cute place to be.
Great place.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, Helena has a lot going on. So did you come for the job in this hospital, or did you guys move? And then what did that look like?
So we were able to relocate first because of his job, and we had a couple places that we could move to. And Helena was my top choice because if I got a job in Montana, I wanted to be able to work in clinic. I wanted to be able to serve the community I lived in versus working a remote position. So it worked out by the time we moved here that there was a position available for me at Shodair, and I love it.
Yeah, and your degree is unique. Do you want to talk a little bit about it, like genetic and your title, but your degree is a little unique too?
Yeah, so I have my master's degree in genetic counseling. So genetic counselors are master's trained, board certified professionals with specialty training in medical genetics and counseling. So our role within the healthcare system is helping families navigate a genetic diagnosis and also being able to communicate that diagnosis effectively in a safe way and help families understand what that diagnosis means for them over time and kind of adapt to that diagnosis from an emotional, a psychological, a medical standpoint.
Wow. You guys do a lot. So both in Helena, how long have you been there?
I am coming up on 10 years, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how did you end up coming to Helena?
Well, I was at St. Patrick Hospital in Missoula, and I was looking for a change. And I tell people I always had 3 criteria. Of course, I wanted to stay in Montana.
Yeah.
I was looking for that next position where I could really make a difference. And it really... I never ever saw myself at Shodair, but the opportunity presented, and it was during my tour and interacting with the kids that it was like, this is the place. And it's ironic, growing up in Montana, Helena wasn't my favorite place until that interview, until getting a tour of the area. And you're right, it is a great community. I mean, there's so much to do there, and the central location is just fantastic. So that's how I ended up in Helena and have not looked back, and it's just been a great opportunity.
Wow. Yeah, I think I didn't grow up going there a lot either, but just because we didn't go to Helena for a lot, proximity wise and sports wise, they're just bigger than we were, so we didn't ever go. But I've gotten to go a lot now as an adult in my professional career, and I always love being there. It's so pretty, and there's a lot of like fun little shops and things that I like to frequent when I'm there.
Well, and it's still local, right? As the rest of the state is changing, Helena still is keeping that local pride and that local presence.
Yeah. So tell us about the hospital. What do you do for those that may be listening that don't know about it, that live in the state?
Sure. I mean, it's an interesting story. So a lot of people don't know Shodair Children's Hospital has been around for 130 years. Wow. So a long time. And it's always been about taking care of Montana kids. So our story goes that we started off as an orphanage, evolved into a polio hospital, and then evolved into a children's medical hospital. And then 50 plus years ago, we became what we are today, which is this child and adolescent psychiatric hospital with this world-class genetics program. And that's who we are today. And we are taking care of Montanans. So this last year, we saw patients from all 56 counties in Montana. Wow. So a lot of people look at Shodair, and if they know us, they think we're Helena-based, which we are located there. But as Maija will share with genetics, we're all over the place, and we're starting to do the same thing with children's psychiatry as well.
Wow. So can we talk a little bit? So those, Rusty reached out and I'm like, I'd heard of it, right? But like, really, what are those services that you do provide to kids of Montana?
Yeah, so I'll start with the psychiatry side, is that we're taking care of kids from the ages of 4 up to 18 years old. So these are kids who are in crisis, who are suffering from a lot of mental health issues. A lot of the kids that make their way to our inpatient facility show up in emergency rooms around the state because they have tried to harm themselves, kill themselves. And there's no other place like Shodair in the state of Montana. So that's why we are taking care of those kids and why Shodair. So a lot of them come to us via ambulance. And so our model is we have acute care services and residential services in the same building, and then a fully accredited school. So while kids are there, they're also going to school, and we're coordinating with every school in Montana. And we just built a brand new hospital. We're coming up on 3 years. And the other cool part of our story, and then I'll turn it over to Maija to really talk about genetics, is 3 years ago, we had one building that housed everything we did, psychiatry and our genetics program. And it just made no sense that you were coming to a psychiatric hospital to see our medical geneticist and our genetic counselors. So when we built the new hospital, we were really intentional about giving genetics their own storefront to really get them out of the world of psychiatry and really to focus on what they're doing now. And so they're on the same campus, but they have their own building. And then maybe from there, Maija, I'll let you just talk about how you serve patients in Montana.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to pause. I have a quick little rabbit hole question for you. So you built a new hospital. That's a big deal. And those aren't cheap to build, right? What did that, and you said you've been there 10 years now. What did that, because clearly that was something that you did within your time there. What was that process like to, when did that idea start? And then how did it come to be that now you have a new facility?
It's a great story because the campus that we're on was purchased several years ago by my predecessor. And the building that was on the campus was a bowling alley and a bar. So that's what we started with. And they retrofitted it to be a children's psychiatric hospital. Well, the problem when I arrived, the biggest issue for us is we were always full. We always had a waiting list, but we had a lot of double occupancy rooms. So, and today you just can't put a lot of these kids in the same room together. So we found ourselves with this growing waiting list. We would have a bed open, but we couldn't admit a kid to that bed. So it was probably 7 years ago when I started down this journey of what can we do different? What does it look like? We really talked about building an acute unit. And then that just evolved into let's just do the whole thing and start over. So today it's a 82-bed facility, all private rooms. Wow. Kids come in, they have their own room, their own bathroom, way different than it used to be. And it's a building that's all about hope and healing.
And did you have to run like a capital campaign or anything like that?
Yeah. So the cost of the project, the hospital project was $66 million. And we raised $14 million through a capital campaign. We sold bonds for the remainder. And what I would just say, the biggest part of our story, and it ties back to us being a Montana facility, is that $56 million of the total cost stayed in Montana. We were very intentional about working with architects, contractors, subcontractors that resided in this state. And I think it's an impressive number to be able to say we did achieve that goal. And I think we garnered a lot of support by the construction community, by our values and what we were trying to do.
Or Montana kids.
Yeah,
that's a huge win. I mean, that's a lot to do a hospital or any big project like that to serve and add more capacity.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is a lot. And then if we have time here, and we've talked about, I had the opportunity, or I took the opportunity to be a patient at our facility on Monday night. And I can talk more about that later, but it's just what I wanted to really see it from the kids' eyes. And it was an eye opener.
Yeah.
It was a real eye opener. And I wish I would have done it earlier in my career, because I think we in the healthcare world design facilities based on staff needs and what we think, but we don't very often involve patients and what a design and what the true needs are. Mm-hmm. And we did that partially, but I think we could have done it better. So there were some takeaways for me by just spending the night.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can get into that. Do you want to? Yeah.
Well, we can get into that, but I think it's really important. I want to just shift it because it's so easy for us to talk about mental health and psychiatry and the kids, but we've got this genetics program that you'll not find in another rural state in this country.
I'm super intrigued because I'm like, what does this mean? Tell me more. And then you're like, okay, we have it for what does it mean? Yeah, all of it. I'm not a healthcare person, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the genetics program started, it'll be 50 years ago next year.
Wow.
Which is
in 2026.
In 2026.
Okay.
So started in 1976, which is crazy to think about because we didn't know all of how many human chromosomes there were until 1956. So really early adopters of genetics in Montana. And at its core, the genetics program started as a way to integrate genetics care into the communities of Montana. And that's what we continue to do. So our home base is in Helena, and we see patients in our clinics in Helena and through telemedicine. But we also have this unique outreach model where we meet patients where they're at, or in some cases are meeting patients halfway. So we see our families in Great Falls, Bozeman, Butte, Billings, Missoula, and Kalispell. So we travel all over the state. We're on the road every single week, going to each of those locations once per month, but on the road every single week. And we really see patients across the lifespan. So while we are housed in a children's hospital, we see from preconception to postmortem, really, for our families. So our team is comprised of Montana's only medical geneticist. So that is a physician who is trained in genetics. And what that looks like is they have training specifically in understanding genetics and genetics information, but also doing a genetics-based physical exam. So we're really nosy in genetics. So we're looking at specific features and patterns of features that can pinpoint us to a specific genetic condition. In 2019, the team brought on a nurse practitioner role. So there's no formal genetics training for nurse practitioners, but our medical geneticist, Dr. Abelias, has trained our nurse practitioners to be able to do the skills of a geneticist under his guidance. And that has helped expand care because we just had one physician for such a long time, and now we have additional providers.
And is that like when you're looking at those things you just mentioned, are those like physical, like what you see, or are they like things you're getting from, I don't know, other types of internal tests?
It's a combination of things. So things we can see on physical exam, but also we do probably the most thorough records review of any medical provider because we're looking at every single note from every single specialty provider that someone's ever seen, and we're really digging into other labs and imaging. I always think of genetics professionals as kind of detectives in the medical field because we're often the ones putting all the pieces together. There's someone who might have multi-organ systems impacted when it comes to their clinical features, and we're putting those pieces together to find one unifying genetic diagnosis with of course, the help of genetic testing that provides us with our big answers. But we can talk more about this too, is every genetic test is what we call phenotype driven. So we use each patient's story to help us understand the data.
And what do you mean by that?
So
I'm intrigued.
Yes. So
there's wow, this is so different from economic development.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm like, well, this is a lot, and I'm not, like I said, medical at all.
Yeah. So there's no one genetic test that can tell us absolutely everything. We're getting there, but a lot of times we have to use everyone's clinical features and what we know about them from other tests and evaluations to help us filter through the data. So there's 20,000 genes that make up our genetic information, and everyone has genetic variation that's mostly normal. But what we're looking for in the medical genetics setting are disease-causing, or what we call pathogenic variants in our genetic information. And to understand what genetic variation means and where to look, we use someone's clinical features to kind of guide what we need to be looking at in the data.
And do you have like an example of that? Like, so people listening and they're like, okay, what does that mean? Like, when do I need to come and see them for something? And like an example of someone, like a patient.
Mm-hmm. So reasons we might see someone in genetics clinic, when we're thinking about kids, we might be thinking of children with developmental delays and neurodevelopmental disorders like autism, children who have seizures, if there's unique features or growth concerns, feeding concerns. In adults, we see people who are planning pregnancy or are pregnant who have questions about family history, or there's concerns that we're seeing on ultrasound. We see adults who have all of those things that we look for in children, but maybe we didn't diagnose someone until adulthood. So kind of the same thing. We see adults for concerns for hereditary cancer, so family history of cancer, people who have ongoing cancer, neurological conditions, heart conditions. So we really see the whole gamut of things. So really anyone who has any of those features that might be red flag, so to speak, for a genetic condition, or might be curious about what their family history means for their health and their risk, those are great people to be evaluated by a genetic counselor or our entire team.
And what do they usually find? I mean, like when you said, like, for example, like if there's like kiddos that have seizures a lot, like what are some of those things that you guys are like picking up on the back end?
So if we use seizures as an example, there are a number of genes where the reason someone has seizures is because of a specific spelling change in a gene, and that gene is somehow related to how the brain functions or the cells in the brain function. So what we're doing is really a spell check of someone's DNA and looking for variations that change how that gene functions. Basically, our genetic information is our body's instruction manual, and this is what tells us how to grow and develop and function. And our cells read our genes like a recipe to create the proteins and enzymes that our cells use to function. So a great analogy I use with our families is if you have a cake recipe and it calls for a teaspoon of salt, but there's a misprint and it says a tablespoon, that cake isn't going to turn out the way that you expect it to. So the same thing can happen with our genes kind of on a cell level, where if there's a spelling change in our gene and that protein isn't functioning the way we'd expect it to, then that has downstream effects for our body and causes the symptoms that we see in genetic conditions.
That is so fascinating. And is it like you're born and like that's just what you get?
Yep. So It's what you're born with. And there's different types of genetic variation. So we use analogies a lot in genetics because it's really complicated.
Yeah, I know. I'm keeping up, trying to keep up. Here we are.
And it really helps people understand what we're talking about. So all of our genetic information, if we were to look under a cell, the first thing we would see are our chromosomes. So you can think of those like a series of books. I used to say encyclopedias, but I don't think anyone under the age of 30 knows what a set of encyclopedias looks like anymore.
I don't think so either, but maybe.
I don't know. But if we're looking for chromosome-related conditions, we're looking to see, is there a book that's missing or extra chapter? So for example, Down syndrome is an extra copy of chromosome 21. So that's a chromosome condition. If we're reading the individual words in that book, those are single gene conditions. So that's when we do the spell check of your genetic information.
That's so fascinating. And how big is the team that's doing this work?
So we have 1 medical geneticist and 2 nurse practitioners, 5 genetic counselors, so who have the same training that I do. We have a dietitian who works with our families with metabolic conditions. A nurse is also on that team as part of the newborn screening follow-up program for the state that Shodair hosts as well. And we have a psychologist who does neuropsychological evaluations for folks around the state, but more specifically for our kiddos with genetic conditions. That's on the clinical team. Mm-hmm. We also have an in-house genetic testing lab at Shodair that is unique for a number of reasons. And within that team, we have techs who are able to do all sorts of different genetic studies. So cytogenetic studies of chromosomes and molecular studies, those spell check studies.
And so then they're coming in and they're getting like some of these diagnoses and then what happens? Is it like the awareness, then what is that after they're they know.
Yes.
After they've had the spell check. If we're using that.
Yeah.
That's the right analogy.
That is the right analogy.
Okay.
So once we have a genetic diagnosis for someone, that opens a lot of doors. So having a name for what's going on is really helpful to know, we can let the family know everything that we know about that condition. And some conditions often are very rare, and there's few families that have been described across the globe that have that condition. So we can kind of guide management and surveillance. There might be other organ systems involved with that genetic condition that maybe a child is not presenting with at the time. So we know to watch out for certain things in the future. And then it's also connecting families to resources and community. So once we have a diagnosis, we can connect families to other families that have that same diagnosis and support groups. We're really good at understanding the medical side of things, but there's day-to-day things that families share with one another that's invaluable.
That's really nice. And that they have like that network of people that they can just work through
Exactly.
some of those things with.
Yeah.
Wow. And so that's that side of the team. You have 82 beds?
82 hospital beds, yes.
So what is the team dynamic? What does that look like for all of you?
Yeah, so Maija just described what it looks like within the genetics world. The other thing I would add just for listeners on this is that this program, when you talk about economic development, right, and being really rural based, most programs like ours are based in major university medical centers.
Okay.
So just to put that in perspective, is Montana's very fortunate to have these services here. So on the hospital side is that 82 beds, we employ about 400 people. Wow. The staff consists of child psychiatrists. We have some psychiatric nurse practitioners. We have therapists. We have recreational therapists. We have teachers, mental health technicians, of course, dietary, all of the things that go into a children's health.
And that's a lot of people to staff in Montana, right? Like, I don't think we were in Nebraska in July, and we're touring around these communities for economic development purposes. And I could talk about that for days because I really like Nebraska. So I'm curious where your husband's from. But anyways, we don't need to get into it. But I think they've got manufacturing facilities that employ 1,000, and you just don't see a lot of that in Montana. I think some of our biggest employers are our hospital systems, like Billings Clinic, Intermountain. 400 is a lot. Right. Where are you getting that talent?
Yeah, you know what? So it really depends on, the specialty, right? Child psychiatrists, we have a couple that grew up in Montana. We've actually had an interesting pipeline from Cincinnati that we've been able to attract.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think we've had 4 child psychiatrists that have came from Cincinnati. Not usually in Montana. However, there is a residency program now at Billings Clinic for psychiatrists, which is definitely needed. And then our therapists, most of our staff, professional staff, as I would describe them, are 50% are probably out of state.
Yeah.
The other are in state. So we're just lucky to be able to have that opportunity to keep those people home and you have to really have a passion and a desire to do the work that we do, especially taking care of kids, because it's hard work.
It is, and service oriented. And how long with 82 beds, what is that patient, kind of back to your experience that we can get into, but for those kiddos, what is that experience like for them and then their families?
Sure. So normally it works like this. A child will come to us. Most likely they'll come into an acute bed, which is the average length of stay for an adolescent is probably 8 days, 8 to 10 days. For what we describe as our littles, the little kids 4 to 9 years old, it's probably about 14 days. And then normally, a lot of kids will do their stint in acute. Some will go home. But most will be then go into our residential unit, which is really a step down, but a longer stay, just to continue with the work that they've already been working on. Average length of stay in a residential unit is about 60 days.
And is that like, are parents coming in, or is that like, and like 24/7?
Yeah. It's
24 hour, like they're getting checked on all throughout the day and night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So I would, and then I just want to add a couple other components. So acute to residential, acute to outpatient. So we have our own outpatient clinic in Helena, but we also have a clinic in Great Falls and Butte.
Okay.
So really adopting a similar model of what we're doing in genetics and trying to meet patients where they're not always having to come to Helena. 99% of our kids we take care of are Montana kids, and that's clearly by design.
Mm-hmm.
And every year we struggle with the question, do we look at North Dakota? Do we look at Idaho? And I have been pretty adamant that I don't want to start filling beds with kids from other states when there's a kid from Ekalaka or Deer Lodge, or pick a community that needs our services and we don't have beds.
Yeah, because you're Montana.
Because we're Montana.
Yeah. And they hopefully get good care in their states too.
Right.
But I think, yeah.
Well, in mental health, mental health has just been one of those services that we have buried under a rug for a long time. Is that, it's when I grew up, you guys are a lot younger. You just never talked about those things. Mm-hmm. And now we're at least putting it on the table. And what we're experiencing is there's a lack of access for specific kids and adults, frankly. And then we have a government that doesn't want to pay for those services. So the organizations providing those services, it's not a great business model. So to put it in perspective, we take care of the kids that we see, 70% they're on Montana Medicaid. Oh. Montana Medicaid reimburses probably 40 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah. So philanthropy becomes really large in what we do. But that would, and I'm going to transition to the other part of your question. So you come in as an inpatient, and I can tell you at nighttime, you're constantly being monitored. There's 15-minute checks throughout the day and throughout the night. So I can tell you as a patient, every 15 minutes, staff were coming into my room, checking on me, and that's all about making sure the kids are safe and they're not self-harming.
Yep. Yeah. And then the parents, like when the kids are in maybe for the 60 days or so, are their parents coming in, or what does that look like? Yeah,
so the parents, our model is all about parental involvement. So we do a lot of, therapy with the parent, and a lot of that is in person like this. Fortunately, we've been able to tap in and use Zoom and other technologies that, a lot of our families don't have the wherewithals to travel.
Yeah.
Even to fill their tank, with gas to come to Helena. So we've been able to involve the families from afar. I mean, you think about Ekalaka.
Yeah, that's a ways from Helena. I'm like, it's probably 7 or so hours. Yeah.
And so just think, as a family member, if you were always having to make that trip, it would be really hard. So we're able to involve the family from afar, both in person but remotely.
Wow. That is really nice.
Yeah.
With technology and just different things that are able to. And then I think too, what's interesting and nice, like that the parents are also getting some of that, right? Because their kiddos with you for a reason. And then the parents are getting some interaction and other things too. Yeah.
The other big thing that is on my mind right now is first of all, I think school-based services is really important. We are in, I think, 7 schools in Helena. And what does that mean? We have therapists, we've got teachers, we've got all that to really take out those difficult kids out of a classroom and get them into another setting. I think that model should be so robust in the state of Montana. So we have just applied for some funding to really expand our we call school-based services throughout the state. So that's kind of the next step. The other thing I want to do is I want to start creating these, what I call community forums, to bring in the experts, to talk to families, to talk about what it's like raising a kid in a world full of technology. Mm-hmm. And, these kids are coming and they're seeing, porn is just a real thing right now. Self-harming, drugs, violence. It's just everything they're getting on their phone is affecting all of us. So I really want to start having that conversation with communities and parents of what it's like to raise a kid today.
Yeah. And how do you, I'm guessing I don't have kids, but I'm like this little sweet thing. Like we didn't grow up. I didn't have cell phone service until I was, high school. And then you're still like T9ing was like still a thing. And like the flip ones with the keypad, which I so miss, the NB like 3 or whatever it was. But, but they have like TikTok, all of these things. And it's like, how long do you hold off? And now it's just like, maybe you get them an Apple Watch and it's all the access so that they can communicate if they need picked up or something. When I'm like, when we said we'd be home at that time, right? Or like you'd call on the school phone. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but like when you needed mom, like, hi mom, I'm going to like do open gym or whatever. And then I'll be home. Like you used the school's phone out in like the cafeteria, but now they just have different things and it just is addicting, So how do you as a community and how do we as a state really set ourselves up for success so that our kids are successful and not getting pulled into these things like you just talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, viewers need to understand is that Montana is always in the top 3 of teenage suicides in the country. So we've got some real interesting factors, the ruralness of our state, obviously. And I'm not just saying, the reservations, the phones, there's just so many factors now that is, I just was listening on the radio the other day of how AI walked a kid through the process of how to kill themselves. And they did it. And
Yikes.
it's just mind-boggling to think that's the world we're in right now. And so how do we get out in front of it and really talk about prevention instead of we're here to take care of those kids? It's like, how do we keep kids out of Shodair?
Yeah, like your job is to make sure that maybe you don't exist in the future, right? Would be ideal. But what are some of those prevention things that you guys are talking even in your Helena schools about?
Well, I think we are working very closely with the school system in Helena, and they get it and understand it, and they have the resources for it. And you just go down the road to Townsend or Boulder, right?
What are those resources? Are you talking like
resources, meaning staff resources,
Okay.
So we have our difficulties trying to recruit those individuals, but try to recruit them to, I keep using Ekalaka, sorry.
No, it's okay. I have some friends that make fun of me because they're like, where are you from again? We forgot. And I'm like, ha ha ha, because I say it all the time. So
no, and I'm not,
good.
And it's not making fun of you.
Yeah, it's a good
just
example.
That we have this rural state and then we have this frontier state.
Yeah.
Right? Where we have communities some communities that don't even have internet service. So how do you really provide those preventative services to communities like that? So I think it's a fragmented system right now. And what do I mean by that? I think we're all out trying to solve the problem instead of collectively coming together and deciding, okay, here is the problem. Here, if we pull all of these resources together, we can make a greater impact. So Shodair's not going to solve the problem by ourselves, but working with other systems and other professionals, it'll be a greater impact.
For the state of Montana.
Coming
together to do it together. Yep. And I think I think people always come around and come together when it's issues or topics around youth. It seems to pull people together. Yeah. So you guys have 50 years, right? You said that's a big anniversary. I feel like you have another one, right?
50 years.
Of the genetics, right?
Yeah. So 50 years.
And 130.
And 130.
Wow.
So the name Shodair has been around 130 years, which is really impressive to think about.
So are you guys doing anything around those big milestone anniversaries?
We are going to do a big celebration, absolutely.
Yeah, in 2026?
2026, yes.
So we talked a lot about the services you're providing for kiddos. How do you, what are you doing from a team perspective? Because we talked about the type of people that work with you, the 400 and some staff are very service care oriented individuals, really giving to help these kids out. What are you doing to help them, through their day to day? like some team things that you all provide maybe
for our staff. Yeah, which is a great question, which leads into, we have become this organization that we call as a sanctuary organization. So it's a model of care, a trauma model of care that was developed by Dr. Sandra Bloom in New York. And it's trauma based. So what does that mean? It really comes down to this. Instead of looking at a kid and saying, "What's wrong with you?" It's like, "What happened to you?" Because we all have a story, right?
Right.
And I think it totally changes how we take care of kids under that lens. So that is a big part of our culture. But then we're really working on other things. Is that in today's world, it's like a big thing we've been working on lately is that psychologically safe organization. What does that look like? It's really a focus and emphasis on people and making people feel safe, because it's not a safe place. The environment we're in, we have staff that are injured every day by the kids we take care of. Up in our other building, we've got security up there that's had to go up there. Genetics is a little more protected, but it's just creating a culture where we are all safe. And then the last thing I'd add to that, when you come to Shodair, because that invitation is there.
Yep.
You'll go to any meeting that we have, if it's in genetics, psychiatry, a board meeting, a medical staff meeting. We always start a meeting, what we call a community meeting. And we would start off by, "Maija, how are you feeling today?" And it's like a feeling. And I don't get to question her feeling, but at least I know where she's at, right? So if she's really frustrated, I don't focus on that, but I ask her if she needs a check-in later. And then it's really what your goal is for this meeting, and if you need support, who can you ask? And it just changes the dynamics of a meeting. And I think our kids do it better than anybody. So they do the same thing at every meeting they're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have to answer those too, which is really great self-reflection and self-awareness at a young age.
Yes.
Because I'm sure some adults, I would assume, maybe not, like I would have to get used to, Marcel, how do you feel today? Think about it.
Well, right. And think of a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, guys who aren't going to talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
Right? I feel good.
I struggle myself too,
Good and fine.
I'd have to be like, really think about it, because I'm like, do you feel good today? I don't know, maybe.
But it's that vulnerability of just really putting out there where, you know what, I'm frustrated today, or I'm disappointed today, and it might be what's happening outside of Shodair. But at least I know if Maija says something, then it's the antennas go up for me. It's like, okay, something's going on there, and she might be responding to things that way, but at least I know there's more to it.
And where it's coming from. Yeah. And your role within genetics, so we have the CEO, right? That's got like big picture. From your perspective as like a team member, how long have you been there, and just like some things that you've really enjoyed while working in your genetics department, environment, or whatever? Yeah. Department. Okay, we'll call it department. Okay.
So I've been at Shodair since May of 22.
So a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm approaching like my pre and post Shodair years, or like my time at Shodair is starting to be longer than anywhere else, which is kind of fun. Yeah. When I started at Shodair, I was previously at a pretty large medical system, and the things that we learn about in orientation are the sanctuary model, and Craig came to orientation, and I was just blown away that the CEO was sitting down to talk to new hires. I put you on the spot in front of your boss. But I texted my mom, like at orientation, I'm like, I cannot believe the CEO like talked to us. So I think just walking in as a new hire and like realizing it's a very supportive environment. And in genetics, we deal with people who have really complex healthcare needs, and we are giving bad news a lot, and patients pass away, patients lose babies. It can be really hard. And knowing that we're in an environment that recognizes that the work we do can be difficult and really encourages staff to do self-care and, we all have, I'm drawing a blank about even what we call those, but on our badges, we write down like the 5 things that we can do during the day to take care of ourselves. So mine is like take a walk, look at pictures of my dogs, go outside. So if I just need a break, like we all have the permission as the culture of our organization to take care of ourselves, to be able to do the work that we do.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so
I
just
like that idea.
It's called a safety plan.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you brought it up, because we all have it.
I like that a lot.
And it's times of frustration. You heard Maija's and mine is, it's like call my wife. It's like praying. It's like exercising. It's those things that are really important to me, that it's like, I need to take a break. I need to do this.
And the awareness to do it and then go do it so that you can come back and finish and tackle the day.
Well,
right?
and it's even for me and Maija right now to just say, hey, are you using your safety plan? And if not, why not?
Yep. And why not? So I'm looking at some of these fun questions. I think we've covered a lot that Rusty sent, but so you did a new build. What are some of those architectural designs that contribute to healing with the new build?
Yeah, so it was a really interesting process. When we started out, we sat down and we came up with these 5 power words, okay? And they were, we wanted in our design for it to be hopeful, for it to be healing, for it to be flexible, for it to be safe. I can't remember the 5th one off the top of my head. I mean, open, I think, is the other one. So if you go to most facilities today, they're, no offense, they're like this.
We're in a vault.
Yeah. I mean, it's
cement.
It's just like this, right? And it's like, how hopeful does this look for a kid who's really struggling with mental health issues? So when you come to our facility, you're going to see bright colors, you're going to see natural light, you're going to see windows, you're going to see everything that we have been told you can't have in a psychiatric hospital. And what we are seeing in the experience out there is that those features help in the healing process for kids and adults.
Because you're giving them, talk a little bit more about that, I think, as a hospital, and you guys are doing very important work for young people. Why is it important to create that hopeful environment for them?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these kids, we live in a really unhopeful world right now. I mean, if you just pick up the newspaper, listen to the news, and kids are getting all their information on social media, and that's not always good. So I think it's really, and they come from some places where there is no hope in the family structure, So it is important for us to really give kids that come to us the tools to cope in a really hard world. And we all need them.
Yeah. And what are some of those tools that you do give the kids?
Well, a lot of it is individual therapy, learning how to control my anger. I mean, it would be one. Learning how to be less reactionary to things, I think, is really understanding the medicines that I'm taking and why I'm taking them and how important they are. So I think there's an educational component. And I think a big part of it is building trust. I can just tell you the other night when I stayed, and I make rounds all the time, so I have relationships with kids, but they don't trust. I mean, they're coming from places where they've been hurt. And there was one gal, one girl that told me where she was from, and I'd just gone through there, and she said, what's there? And she wanted me to describe, because she didn't believe me. And it just took that back and forth for her to finally understand that I wasn't lying to her. I was being truthful to her. And the bond just started building. So I think those are the coping skills that we're bringing to the table. It's just some great staff. And I can tell you by my experience, I was so proud, so hopeful by the staff that we had there, is that watching them interact with our kids, watching them interact with patients. I mean, I get to see that every day, and it is so powerful. We have one of our genetics patients, and watching him see one of our other genetic counselors, I mean, he just melted. There was that bond, there was that relationship. So we're very relationship driven.
And do you see with the kids, and if they're with you for 60 days, do you see them again? after that time, are they pretty good where you don't?
No, I mean, I think we see a lot of kids that will come back. And I think, the part of the issue is they're going back to the environment, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes kids just aren't ready.
And sometimes they can't, if they are going back to the environment, they're not like an adult where they can put themselves in different environments to set themselves up for success.
So, I mean, I think there's been kids that have been there multiple times, but I think once they finally, where it clicks and it connects, they have gone on to be really successful citizens in the state and outside of the state.
Wow. That is nice. Do you have any like stories on some that you're like, oh, this was just a moving story of this patient?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I'll just talk about, we have these champion. So we're part of the Children's Miracle Network. Well, that probably is worth some airtime here. There's 170 some children's hospitals throughout the country, and there's a network that get together that raise money for children's health. We are the only children's hospital in Montana part of that network.
Wow!
So very big, very impactful. And I now sit on that board of that organization. And the reason I'm on that board is mental health is everywhere. And it's showing up in emergency rooms, all different places. So we are that only freestanding children's psychiatric hospital out of 170 hospitals. So it's bringing that and our experiences to the table. So every year we identify these champion children, we call them, if they're for genetics or for their psychiatry, and they become the spokespeople for what we do. And actually, we had an interview earlier today as well. I would love to sit here, but have a child here, or have a patient of genetics here, so they can tell their story and you can hear it from them.
Would love to have them on.
Yeah, so that would be the next chapter. So a lot of them I could go on with several that have gone on after, so here's what I'd say. Their story becomes so powerful because to have a kid get up at 16 years old and say, I'm a suicide survivor,
that's impactful.
It's huge, right? And then to see where we had an individual from Butte who probably 2-3 times, she's tried to harm herself, but now she's in a surgery program and in Missoula, wants to be in an OR somewhere, and she's lighting the world on fire. And her story, she not only took to the state of Montana, but nationally.
Wow.
So we have those patients in both genetics and in the psychiatry side, and that's where, instead of listening to people like me, it's having a kid here, right? That's where the story comes from.
I think that's in a lot of service or healthcare based, right? You want to hear from you need to hear the other stuff too, but sometimes like when you need that story told, it's hearing it from the patient, which makes it really, really impactful. Earlier, you talked about federal legislation, but also state. So I know we're not coming into another session year, but as that is approaching in 2027, are there things you all are doing or watching or kind of being proactive about now for the state and or federal?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer that a couple different ways. During my tenure, 10 years, every session has been about Medicaid expansion, right? So we finally get this, remove the sunset, and we have Medicaid expansion. And now we pass that locally, and then you have the federal government that passes their own bill that really affects,
Montana, or everywhere,
but those individuals on Medicaid. So I don't think today I could sit here with a straight face. I don't think anybody can. What is that true impact going to be? I think how it's going to affect places like Shodair and other hospitals in the state. Instead of them being on Medicaid where you're getting paid something, they're just not going to have any insurance whatsoever, and we're going to be writing off all of those amounts. So it's going to have a big financial impact to every hospital in Montana.
Yeah, because I know we were watching that one closely, the Medicaid reauthorization or whatever it was called this past session. And yeah. I know all of the healthcare people were too.
So I think for us, when you look going forward, reimbursement is always the big issue. Staffing is as big as reimbursement is. Everybody's struggling to find the right staff and keep the staff and you know the well-trained staff and all of those components. And that's not just healthcare, that's every industry right now.
Yep. Are you guys seeing any, I mean, with some of the stuff you do, are you seeing any AI or automation or anything kind of coming in to help with some of that?
Well,
whether it's like charting or things like that.
I mean, there's always that happening. I think you're seeing AI coming in, but I also think you're starting to see technology where the nurse isn't in the room, the nurse is remote or the doctor is remote, seeing patients differently just because of the staffing issues, which is it's a hard concept, right? I remember my dad saying that you go to a physician today and they don't really touch you. You know, it's all just documenting. And it's a different model. I don't think it's the right model, but that's where we've gone because of the reimbursement issues.
Yeah, I have a cousin. I don't know. I'll share it because it's funny. I don't know if it's appropriate for me, but she's funny. She's like, I want to be like poked and prodded and tested. Like because you're going, right? You want to make sure you're healthy or like take my blood. I hate watching it, but like do the things because I'm like, I want to know that like if I'm sick, I got to know, you know, when you go. Yeah. I don't need you to just be like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I feel fine, but what if I'm internally like, my insides are like, I don't know, shutting down, you know?
And you look back at the Marcus Welby days, right? People probably don't know that name, but
I'm so sorry. I'm like,
that's when you had the physician that made house calls.
Oh yeah. Way back. Yeah.
Way back. And just that was care and just how it's evolved over the years where it's so, I use corporate. It's just corporate today. And I don't think that's the right model of care because generationally, to your point, my dad would come back. He's like, you know, his gruff ways is they never even touched me today. You know what? It's just like everything's sterile and cold, and patients want more.
They
deserve more?
Do you think there'll be a shift in how we receive healthcare as patients?
I do think there will be. I think there will be a shift, and I think there's going to be different ways of receiving healthcare. I don't think it's going to be the traditional where I'm going to go to an office and see my provider. Yeah. I think you're going to use your phone. I think our newer generation coming up is used to the technology and is okay with seeing providers that way.
Yeah.
So I hope it goes, you know, we always go from, you know, one end to the other it's like, how do we get to the middle part where we're addressing everything?
So are there ways that like businesses that are listening or Montanans that how can they partner with you all and get connected? And you also talked, so I'll ask that and I'll say my next question for after. Sometimes I ask too many questions.
Well, I think that, you know, any business listening right now that has employees are dealing with people who are struggling with mental health issues. It's just a fact right now. We all come from places, like it or not, where we've experienced some kind of trauma. So what are those resources a business could provide? So they could pick up the phone and they could call us, and it's like, what does a partner, you know, does that mean a therapist that we're bringing to your business? You know, what education, all of those things. And I will just tell you, just because of Helena, Dick Anderson has really devoted a lot of resources to mental health within their own company because they get it and they understand it.
And they're headquartered out of Helena, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And as you approach 50 years, 130, like, you know, what's next? As you guys have hit those big milestones?
I'll start it. I mean, I think big picture, I think children's medical care in Montana is very fragmented. I think there is a system that could be developed that I happen to believe could be in Helena just to have everything central. So I think from a vision point of view that I'm really passionate about kids' health. And I think our businesses and our country like to give money to support kids' programs. So I think there's more of a role we could be playing if it's mental health or medical help and children's services. I think the school system's going to be fundamental in anything and everything we do, because these poor teachers that are coming to the world of teaching today, and some of the kids in their classrooms are tough, and they're just not equipped for that. So what's that model going to look like? And then I think for our genetics program, I would say there, and we're seeing right now, we're starting to see other rural states coming to us, asking us to expand into those states, because I heard Coeur d'Alene, what did I say earlier? It's months to get in.
2 years.
2 years.
Oh, yeah, that's not acceptable, really. I mean, if you have somebody that needs care, like now, that's a long wait, is what I mean by that.
So what would you add to that, Maija?
I think my hope and vision is that your zip code is not what determines your quality of care, or for that matter, your life expectancy either. I think one thing that we're doing well and that we'll continue to do is having access to the most up-to-date technology and most up-to-date resources here in Montana, where it's already a struggle for folks to get care because of how rural and how large our state is. And I don't think families should have to travel to Washington or Utah or Colorado to get the same level of care. So part of that is expanding our genetic services and also expanding the technologies that we have available in the state as well.
And I think back to your previous question of some of the equipment that is needed in our genetics programs, that's how businesses could help, because if those services aren't here, their employees are leaving the state of Montana to get those services somewhere else.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier about fundraising being a huge component. Do you guys do that? Do you have a foundation within Shodair that does that? What does that look like for you?
So you met Rusty Cash.
I did.
So Rusty is our Chief Development Officer.
Okay.
And what does that mean? He leads our foundation and is constantly, actively out meeting with donors and potential donors of how they continue to support our mission and what we're doing. So what we do in our foundation, I believe there's, it's a small foundation, 3-4 people that do a lot of amazing things.
That's amazing. So if people want, it's been so fun to have you guys on, and thank you for making the time while you're in town to join me on the Vault. If they want to learn more about you all or get connected, donate, where can they find you?
So I would encourage them to go to www.shodair.org.
Okay.
And I think through our website, which we are redeveloping or designing, there's phone numbers. There will be more information about our genetics program, all of our other services. That's what I would encourage listeners to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Were there any last things that I didn't ask about?
I don't think so.
You did a great job.
Yeah, this was great.
Well, thank you.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It was fun.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to The Vault. Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway or Instagram at TheVault_201. Or check us out on our website, thevault@201.com, where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. See you next time.